We're going to talk in this video about how to speak things into existence. And we know this is how God brought reality into existence. The whole universe was spoken into existence. In Genesis we hear, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So light didn't exist, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. That's words having what we see a physical consequence, a physical impact. And then God said, "Let the waters under heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear," and it was so. So here we have a clear indication that God is just speaking physical reality, land, water. These things are physical according to our way of looking at things, and God is speaking them into manifesting in certain ways. He's reorganizing them through a command, a godly command. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth a living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind." And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw it was good. So God made life. He just spoke it. He said, "Let there be living things," and living things emerged. So it's not just physical nature that can be spoken into existence by God. It's no harder for him to speak living things into existence than material things. God's word is predictive. He can speak it and it is, and he can speak it and it becomes. Ezekiel 5:17. "So will I send upon you famine and evil beasts, and they shall bereave thee, and pestilence and blood shall pass through thee, and I will bring the sword upon thee. I, the Lord, have spoken it." So there is a predictive statement. It's a prophecy, and it's something that will come to pass. So God's word is time independent. It's not in the here and now necessarily. It can move through time to have its way when and where God wills. Even in the time of Jesus, Jesus spoke things into existence. In Mark 1:42, Jesus says, "And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleansed." And John 15:3, "Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you." So through the word of Jesus, men are clean spiritually and physically. And this we find strange or even confusing or perplexing, because we can't associate the spoken word with physical occurrences, physical phenomena. And while there are some discussions about this and some speculation about basically psychokinesis, mind movement of things, there's absolutely no evidence of it. But on the other hand, when you think about it, what hasn't been spoken into existence. It's not that actually rare. In fact, it basically is the way everything is created, whether human or divine. Think of a movie, for example. A movie can be based on reality. It can attempt to recreate reality. It can duplicate it. It can be a historic-based movie, and it can attempt to duplicate historic events as closely as possible. Or it can be a complete fantasy with completely different rules of nature and technology we can only dream of, mental abilities that completely alien to us. These things began with concepts. And when we think of concepts, they're words. They're words with ideas attached, and these ideas are also words. It's mental speaking as we think and create. If we think of an alien world, two different words, one concept. The alien belongs to a different world, different reality kind of thing, but it's a very undefined character initially. But we have an idea what we want to create, so the alien becomes a green monster or a pretty young girl, perhaps princess. Could be a pretty young girl that turns into horrible monsters. The alien becomes a being through the words we attach to the being, and these words are concepts, and so the concept alien is built up with other words, other concepts, and so we're speaking this thing into existence, and then we write it. We write the concept down on paper and people read it. So we're communicating this information, words on paper, is communication. And the reader is reading it, and the only way he can read it is because he understands the words, and these words give him concepts. And when we thought alien and developed this into a very complex, sophisticated image, the reader is reading all of this complexity, complex sentences, complex ideas, and translates and interprets, then it becomes alien, an idea of an alien. And this idea of alien has all these attributes that we gave it. And so the idea becomes a movie, it gets turned into a movie. But there's many other ways things get spoken into existence. Art is like a painting. It's an idea. We can see reality, and we can duplicate it on paper. But while we're painting trees. We're painting them green. We're giving them shadow. We're speaking this to ourselves. That's what we're creating. And we're speaking different techniques and different brushes, and yes, it's being handled physically, but they're mental. Without the mental processes, the hand wouldn't be moving, and the form on the canvas wouldn't be taking shape. A clear example is when we invent something totally unique, a new invention. We get the idea of what we want to create. Say we want to create a desalinization method. So with desalinization, we know what that is. That's taking salt out of water. So we also know that seas have salt in them. So we're kind of associating these things. We're not creating anything particularly except the idea. We're moving towards a creation. We're starting with something that's known, salty water, and connecting it with something we want, unsalted water. And then we're creating something in between these things to move the initial condition to the final stage. And we develop this depending on what our concepts are, how deep our understanding is, the ideas and concepts that we have at our disposal. If we're familiar with all the techniques of desalinization, then we might come up with something different than if our familiarity is fairly primitive and we're a novice in the field. But the things are all spoken into existence one way or another. Without the words and the concepts, the creation couldn't take place. So God speaking things into existence shouldn't be strange to us. What's strange is that we think the speaking things into existence creates a physical entity, whereas they may seem, the object may seem physical, and technically because the word physical relates to what is seen, what's perceived through our five senses. These things are physical because we define it as what is perceived through the five senses. So it's a tautology. But the stool or the chair is only known through the concepts that we use to state it. If we didn't have the concept chair, we wouldn't be able to say what it is, and then if we didn't have the component concepts of legs and seat and back and rungs and rails and so on, we couldn't describe it, and we couldn't easily design one ourselves because we wouldn't have the concepts to organize the making of one, and so we could work on it. The ideas that we have, if they don't have words attached, are very ill-formed. If we see a phenomenon take place and we don't know what it is, we would have a hard time describing it or communicating it. But reality is, or has been communicated to us by God. And so we form concepts relating to what's been communicated to us. And our development of language and understanding is a recreation of the communication given to us by God, a reinterpretation or a restatement of the concepts that God uses to describe reality. Every communication needs an originator and a recipient and symbols by which the narrative or the information is communicated. And the recipient has to be able to decode the symbols. He has to be able to translate them into what they actually mean. So, as I say, the object of humanity, the purpose of humanity is to understand this communication, to figure out reality through the concepts that God used to create it. And so God created the world through his speech, and we are trying to recreate it in our own speech. It's almost like translating the divine language into the human language so that we can understand the communication of God in, say, English, when God is speaking his own language. And this is the purpose of man in that sense. And what we have spoken about before is creating an ethical organization. An ethical organization is simply one built on the concepts that God has passed down to us. It's interpreting the creation of God into our own understanding, our own language. So, and then of course what we need to do, and this is where the building of the church comes in, we need to take these ideas, these concepts, and turn them into something what we see as physical, and that's the church. Because the church is the things that we as Christians build based on the information given to us by God. But the whole underlying foundation, the basis of all of this, where it all begins, is the spoken language, the spoken word, the concept that is communicated, the idea that is turned into a physical reality, so that the idea of the church becomes a way of life that we have created based on the information given to us by God.